The future king has reached his limit, and behind the polished palace smiles, behind the carefully staged royal photographs, behind the silence coming from Buckingham Palace walls thick enough to bury secrets for generations, there are now whispers that Prince William is no longer thinking like a wounded brother, but like a king preparing for war. Imagine the pressure crushing down on him every single morning. Imagine waking up knowing your face will one day represent the crown itself, while your younger brother continues detonating emotional grenades from a Montecito mansion 6,000 miles away. Imagine carrying the weight of Queen Elizabeth's entire legacy on your shoulders while endless questions swirl around Harry, Meghan, Archie, Lilibet, and the future of the royal bloodline itself. That is the storm now allegedly consuming palace conversations behind closed doors. And according to insiders, this is no longer just a family feud. It has evolved into something colder, something institutional, something strategic. Because the question now echoing through royal circles is not whether William is angry. Everyone already knows he is angry. The real question is how far he is prepared to go once the throne finally becomes his. And according to explosive whispers coming from people allegedly close to palace operations, William is no longer interested in emotional reconciliation, sentimental reunions, or carefully staged peace summits. Those dreams reportedly died years ago. What remains now is calculation, protection, containment, and a growing belief that the monarchy itself cannot survive another decade of chaos leaking out of California. That is where the Dina question explodes into public consciousness. Not because William supposedly wants tabloids screaming outside hospital gates with test kits in their hands. No, the real fear inside palace walls is far more chilling than that. The fear is that the institution may eventually decide it no longer needs public confrontation at all. That instead of dramatic accusations, it can simply erase relevance quietly, surgically, almost invisibly. The same way ancient monarchies have removed threats for centuries, not loudly, calmly, efficiently, permanently. And that is why people inside royal circles keep bringing up Prince Andrew. Because once upon a time, Andrew looked untouchable too. The Queen's favorite son, a senior royal wrapped in privilege, titles, military honors, and royal protection. Then, suddenly, the machine turned on him. Not with screaming headlines at first, not with dramatic public trials inside Buckingham Palace, but with silent removals, patronages gone, military titles stripped, public appearances erased, one by one, piece by piece, until a prince who once stood near the throne looked like a ghost edited out of his own family portrait. And that is reportedly the model William has studied very carefully. Because here is what makes this entire situation so explosive. William may not need a Dina test at all. That is the terrifying part. He may never need television drama or public humiliation or legal warfare. The crown already possesses mechanisms older than most countries on earth. It can reshape titles, rewrite relevance, alter succession optics, freeze people out so slowly the public barely notices until the process is complete. And according to insiders, William allegedly understands this perfectly. Now suddenly, people are re-examining everything surrounding Archie and Lilibet's births, the missing hospital photo traditions, the confusing timelines, the unusual secrecy, the absence of the standard royal presentation rituals the public had grown accustomed to for decades. And once those doubts entered public conversation, they never truly disappeared. That is the brutal reality, because unanswered questions have a strange way of mutating into permanent suspicion. But here is where this story becomes darker than most people realize. The palace reportedly understands something devastating about public psychology. A Dina test would actually end the speculation. One way or another, the mystery dies once definitive proof appears. But a quiet institutional distancing, a silent removal from relevance, that keeps the questions alive forever. The doubt becomes eternal. And according to people watching this unfold behind the scenes, that possibility may be far more useful to the monarchy than a messy public battle ever could be. And somewhere inside that Montecito mansion, Harry reportedly knows it. Because the tragedy underneath this entire saga is that William's anger allegedly comes wrapped inside grief. Real grief. The grief of a brother who feels he lost Harry years ago. Palace insiders allegedly say William no longer recognizes the man standing beside Meghan at red carpets and Netflix events. The old Harry, the laughing prince from military tours, the mischievous younger brother standing beside William at royal weddings, the energetic founder of Invictus, reportedly feels gone, replaced by someone exhausted, defensive, isolated, and permanently trapped inside a war he no longer controls. That is why the Katie Holmes theory has exploded online. More and more royal watchers now whisper the same thing privately. Harry needs an escape plan. A real one. Not emotional promises, not therapy sessions. A full strategic extraction protection operation, disposable phones, secret lawyers, hidden housing, quiet bank accounts, the exact same way Katie Holmes blindsided Tom Cruise and escaped Scientology with military precision back in 2012. And honestly, the parallels are terrifying people because supporters of this theory believe Harry is psychologically cornered. They believe California itself became part of the trap. Not Britain, not Canada, California, a jurisdiction where custody laws could allegedly make separation from his children nearly impossible without years of catastrophic legal warfare. And according to commentators obsessed with this story, that reality has become the emotional prison keeping Harry exactly where he is. Think about it carefully. Harry abandoned almost every support structure he once had. His military circle, his aristocratic friendships, his family connections, his palace staff, his royal infrastructure, his home country, everything. One by one, those bridges burned behind him. And now insiders claim he lives in near total isolation from the world that once protected him. A prince surrounded not by lifelong trust, but by contracts, branding meetings, PR teams, streaming deals, and carefully managed narratives. Meanwhile, former Sussex staffers continue quietly surfacing with disturbing stories. Stories about emotional chaos behind closed doors. Stories about burnout. Stories about professionals allegedly driven to emotional collapse trying to manage the couple's operations. Palace veterans reportedly refer privately to a Sussex Survivors Club, an informal network of ex-employees bonded together by shared experiences they still cannot discuss publicly because of aggressive legal protections and non-disclosure agreements. And the pattern reportedly never changes. First comes admiration, then excitement, then loyalty, then the moment someone finally tells Meghan and Harry something they do not want to hear. After that, freeze out, isolation, leaks, reputation destruction, departure, another staff member is gone, another relationship burned to ashes, another warning ignored. According to insiders, even highly respected communications professionals allegedly failed trying to steer the Sussex operation away from disaster. Now add the financial pressure beginning to close in around them. Spotify gone. Netflix reportedly is shaky. Public interest declining. The Royal Exile brand is losing novelty. Expensive security costs piling up. Massive Montecito lifestyle expenses growing heavier every single year. Because the entire Sussex business empire was built around one assumption, that the public would endlessly pay premium prices for access to Harry and Meghan's royal drama forever. But according to critics, that fascination is beginning to crack, and when the glamour fades, spreadsheets become merciless. And the truly terrifying part for Harry is that the monarchy does not even need to rush. That is what most people still fail to understand about institutions built over centuries. Democracies panic, celebrities panic, corporations panic, monarchies wait. They sit still while storms rage around them. They let scandals burn themselves out. They allow emotional people to exhaust themselves publicly while the crown simply remains standing in silence. And according to palace insiders, that patience is exactly why William reportedly believes he already has the upper hand. Insiders say he watches patterns obsessively. Who stays loyal? Who leaks? Which narratives survive? Which staff members move quietly behind the scenes? Which public battles are worth fighting and which are better handled through institutional silence? Because unlike Harry, William was trained from birth not merely to survive royal life, but to weaponize patience itself. That is the difference now allegedly terrifying palace watchers. Harry fights emotionally, William reportedly fights structurally, and somewhere beneath all the headlines, beneath all the rage and betrayal and gossip, sits the most heartbreaking reality of all. Two brothers who once walked behind their mother's coffin together now exist almost like opposing kingdoms separated by an ocean of bitterness. People forget that. They reduce everything into memes and clickbait wars and dramatic thumbnails. But at the center of this entire disaster are two men shaped by the same trauma who chose completely different survival paths afterward. One buried himself inside duty. The other reportedly spent years running from it. That emotional fracture allegedly became irreversible the moment William concluded Harry was no longer simply criticizing the institution, but actively destabilizing it. That was the turning point according to insiders. Not anger over interviews, not embarrassment over memoir details. The true breaking point allegedly came when palace figures began privately fearing that Harry and Meghan's behavior posed long-term reputational risks to the monarchy itself. Once that perception settled into William's thinking, the relationship reportedly changed forever, because a future king can forgive many things, but he cannot forgive perceived threats to the crown. And that is why people close to royal operations allegedly believe reconciliation is now almost impossible. Too much damage, too much public humiliation, too many accusations, too many broken private conversations dragged into documentaries and books. Too many palace staff members caught in emotional crossfire. Too many confidential moments turned into global entertainment. At some point, insiders claim William stopped seeing Harry as an emotional problem to solve and started viewing him as a constitutional complication to contain. That is an astonishing shift when you really think about it. This is not just sibling resentment anymore. This is succession-level thinking, state-level thinking, institutional survival thinking. And if that mindset truly exists inside William's inner circle, then every future interaction between the brothers becomes loaded with hidden calculation. Every invitation, every public appearance, every family gathering, every title discussion, every photograph. Nothing becomes casual anymore because everything now exists under the shadow of future kingship. Because Harry has become unpredictable, emotionally volatile, publicly reactive, capable of revealing deeply private family details without warning. That unpredictability reportedly makes palace officials deeply nervous about what future interviews, memoirs, or documentaries could still emerge. And according to sources close to royal operations, that fear is another reason why institutional distancing may eventually intensify. Not out of revenge, out of containment. Now suddenly the Dina controversy starts looking different, doesn't it? Because maybe it was never really about science at all. Maybe the speculation itself became useful. A distraction. A fog cloud surrounding a much larger institutional transition already happening quietly underneath the surface. While the public argues about swabs and bloodlines and conspiracy theories, the monarchy allegedly focuses on something far simpler: survival, stability, longevity, protecting the future reign before it even begins. And if insiders are right, William has already chosen his path. No dramatic showdown, no screaming public confrontation, no televised humiliation, just slow removal, gradual freezing out, reduced visibility, reduced institutional relevance. The same silent machinery that once protected royal family members allegedly preparing to neutralize them instead. Cold, methodical, irreversible. That is why palace watchers keep saying the real danger to Harry and Meghan is not immediate destruction. It is long-term erasure, becoming irrelevant to the institution over time. Watching invitations shrink, watching roles disappear, watching history quietly reorganize itself around a future king determined to simplify the monarchy down to its safest, most controllable core. And somewhere inside Montecito, according to critics, they already know it is happening. That is why the media strategy feels increasingly frantic. That is why every public appearance seems carefully engineered for relevance. That is why every glossy photograph feels loaded with desperation underneath the luxury aesthetic. Because deep down, they allegedly understand the clock is ticking. The world moves on quickly. Royal fascination fades quickly. Public sympathy shifts quickly. But institutions endure. So now we arrive at the darkest possibility of all. What if William never needs to destroy Harry publicly because time itself will do the destruction for him? What if decades from now, the Sussex era is remembered not as a successful rebellion against the monarchy, but as a tragic exile that slowly consumed itself far away from the institution it tried to challenge? What if the crown simply waits patiently while Montecito burns through money, relationships, public goodwill, and emotional stability year after year until there is almost nothing left to fight against?